Hey, this was definitely impromptu. Let me share the link on the Twitter and such. Let's see here. And thank you to all my new subscribers. I'm excited. So I feel the need to do this show because, quite honestly, I haven't seen any others who have. So let me see here. All right. Bear with me. I'm going to share this link. I haven't seen any of my comrades cover this, and I think it's incredibly important. And I understand that, a lot of are political, but at the same time, I think it's important that we realize that this actually is political as well. It has to do with the criminal injustice system that so many people suffer at the hands of, especially Black and Brown people. So that is incredibly important that it is discussed. So give me one moment. Um, Now, I'm not sure how many people are familiar with the specifications of the case or anything like that. So I'm just going to break it down well and then break down the importance of the verdict. Okay. All right. I got this on Twitter. Now let me put it on Facebook quick. I was just approved for Rockfin yesterday, so I'm excited. I'll be starting to stream on there as well, which is better. So, all right. So, for those just joining, I haven't seen any of my comrades talking about R. Kelly. And so, as the screen says, trigger warning. I know it's a very ugly subject, and I know it's very personal and it's very scary and it's very psychologically terrifying. Um, and it has to do with a pop star that's very rich and famous, and it makes people very uncomfortable because it's something that we're just not used to seeing. Um, but it needs to be discussed. So, as far as R. Kelly, again, trigger warning. I'm not going to like too much detail, but I want to say with the trimming, if you are comfortable, um, I found the documentary series Surviving R. Kelly incredibly difficult to watch, but incredibly important to watch because it not. I think a lot of people just think of him as a rapist or what have you, and it is so much more than that. Um, R. Kelly actually started assaulting young girls 31 years ago. He has been accused countless times. He has been acquitted. And the other day, he was finally found guilty. Now, he wasn't found guilty for the 48 women who have accused him, but he was found guilty for 10. Now, these 48 women who have accused him were Black young girls from the age of 12 to 17. Like I said, this has gone on for 31 years. Don't tell me it doesn't have to do with them being young Black girls. Don't fucking tell me it doesn't have to do with that. It does. If those girls were white, this shit never would have went on this long. Never. I posted something like that on Twitter, and someone said, what about Epstein? Well, I'll tell you the difference between Epstein. He's a white man. That's the difference. First of all, R. Kelly's a Black man. Black man hurting little white girls? You don't think that's different? Epstein connected to the Clintons, the Trumps, the Prince Andrews, the rich white dude. You think that's the same as a Black rapper? No, it's not. So stop with the false equivalencies. This would have been different if these little girls were white. We're seeing it right now with the young girl who was just found dead, who's white, who has been all over the news for weeks, when how many young black and brown women are missing and don't even get investigated. Let's not be ignorant. That has a hell of a lot to do with this. Now, Artley, he's from, and one of his places is in Chicago. He's friends with Chicago police. So not only for 31 years has he been sexually assaulting, raping, holding hostage, holding captive, starving, psychologically abusing these young girls. He's been getting away with it. The first time it came out in the news and really was looked into was when he married Aaliyah, who was 15 years old. 15 years old. He started dating her when she was 13. What? Because she's this beautiful pop star. Well, she's passed now, but it wasn't made as big of a deal as it should have been. It was, oh, they're so cute. They're both in hip hop and they fell in love. She's 15. She was 13. That's not okay. And no, her parents did not give her permission to marry him when she was 15. They lied and said she was 18. So I've heard that bullshit excuse too. So you have these girls, and they would go to his concerts, and they would be, as they call themselves, super fans. And he would pull them on stage, and they'd scream, and he'd sing to them, and they'd get so excited. Holy shit, oh my fucking God, R. Kelly just pulled me on stage. And then one of his people would hand them a backstage pass. They'd go back. He'd ask them how old they were. They'd tell him, he'd give them phone numbers. Then he'd say, hey, why don't you come hang out at the hotel? Why don't you bring your friends? And so on and so on. And he would manipulate them. Again, this is a trigger warning. I want to be very clear. He would manipulate these girls by telling them stories about how he was molested as a child and how he was abused. And he would earn their sympathy and their trust by manipulating them with the pain that he had gone through. And he would use that. And these girls, of course, would feel awful for him. Of course. And he's gone through it. Why would he do anything like that to them? When we all know it typically is a cycle. But I digress. So he would have these girls come to the hotel. He would do things like urinate in their mouths. He would make tapes of things like this. One of the tapes was, went out public. He said, "Oh, that's my twin brother." The brother was like, "That's not me. We haven't even talked in years." And R. Kelly was literally going in the media blaming his brother, who never even met these girls, lived in a different state, everything. And you know what? Even more came out, and they were still playing his music, and they were still having his concerts, and people were still protesting the trials and stuff. Like, he's a great singer. He makes great music. I don't give a fuck. What does that have to do with anything? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So he's talented. That doesn't mean he can be holding little girls captive. He would tell them, "Parents don't want you. They told me they want nothing to do with you. They said you could stay with me." Next thing you know, they're locked up in a room by themselves. They need to ask for permission to use the bathroom in a bucket. They need to ask permission to get a water. They need to ask permission to eat. At times, they are starved for 3 days. They are not allowed to watch TV for fear of it influencing their mind somehow and realizing this was wrong. They were not allowed to contact their family or have any kind of visitors. They were literally held hostage. And during that time, they were beaten, they were mentally, psychologically, physically abused to a point where their families didn't even recognize them anymore because he was starving them to look like little boys and making them shave their heads and dressing them like boys. He is a sociopath of the highest degree. And like I said, if you have not watched The Surviving R. Kelly, it is incredibly difficult. There is no question. I mean, there were times I had to just turn it off because I was sobbing so bad. But these brave women have gone through pure hell with him, and they've also gone through hell when they come out with their story, and they have been threatened and harassed and just maligned and slandered and attacked because how dare you say something about a talented rap star? How dare you? So you'd see people at his trials with big posters, "Free R. Kelly, free R. Kelly. He didn't do anything." Even women. You have 48 girls. They're all lying. All of them. There's video footage of this shit. It's fake. This is such a commentary on the way that we victim blame. Imagine being held captive for 3 years, not being able to see your family, not even having to ask permission to eat or use the bathroom, finally breaking free and leaving, and having people attack you for lying. That's why a lot of times they went back to him, because they thought, well, people are telling me I'm lying. Maybe I'm just overreacting. Maybe that's not really how it was. Maybe he really does love me. He was doing this to multiple women at the same time, and they all knew it. but he would keep them all in different rooms. He would rent hotels, 2 floors at a hotel, literally 2 fucking floors, and have each girl in a different room. So they knew there were others, but they couldn't communicate. And that made him safer. So, I mean, there's just so much about this story that's so upsetting. And it's also upsetting that we're not seeing independent media talk about the importance of this motherfucking piece of garbage finally being told he's guilty. Finally, after all these women have lived in hell and finally been listened to, and people aren't talking about it. This isn't okay. This should be blowing up on the internet right now. Is it so common now that we don't even feel the need to talk about it anymore? Is it just, well, we have a rapist president, and we had a rapist president before that, and we had a rapist president before that, and all of a sudden it's like this doesn't matter anymore? Like, 48 girls' lives were fucking turned upside down by this fucker, and he was just found guilty, and nobody's talking about it. That's fucked up. And yeah, it's not a pretty topic, but I pray that these girls with this verdict find at least some semblance of justice and some semblance of closure. And I hope that he gets convicted. I hope that motherfucker rests in prison for the rest of his fucking life. I hope he burns in hell, and I hope he never fucking gets out, because he will not stop. Someone like him is a predator. They do this nonstop. They will never stop. And for 31 years, he has been completely invincible. And why is that? Because he was friends with the cops, because he was friends with DAs, because there was a fucking lawyer who literally was specifically taking his victims who were calling him out and convincing them to sign NDAs and settle for money instead of going public. They were manipulating these young girls. No, don't go public. Sign this NDA. He'll give you money. You can get therapy. You move on. It's all good. And it was a lawyer who was doing that with non-stop victims of his. These are predators. These are people who have used these girls and their trauma to benefit them monetarily. And so often we see Black people without justice. This is finally some semblance of justice. I should not be the only person talking about this. This is something, even as a white person, we need to be, cognizant of the impact that the importance of this. Being found guilty after walking multiple times and continuing the cycle of what he was doing, and now being held in that orange suit. That is at least some semblance of a fucking victory. And it needs to be talked about. So I stand in full solidarity with all those victims. And you are brave as fuck for coming out and doing what you did. Anyone, and I mean anyone, who goes online and posts his videos and says, oh, well, they're all lying and stuff, fuck you. Seriously, fuck you. You're garbage. You go be with him. Go visit him in the fucking prison. Because how dare you? And we're seeing that in the articles where he's found guilty. You see women in the comments like, whatever, these bitches be lying and shit. Fuck that and fuck you. That is so disgusting. These women deserve our respect. They are fucking heroes for standing up and speaking their truth. Also, mute R. Kelly, hashtag mute R. Kelly. They're the ones that got radio stations to stop playing his music, got a Chicago concert canceled. There were 9 protests across the U.S. Mute R. Kelly at his events. They have done incredible work. And they are one of the reasons that this guilty verdict was done, because of their activism and their fight and standing up for these girls. So I wasn't planning on doing this show. I wasn't planning on getting emotional. I wasn't planning on, getting into so many details. But it bothers me that nobody is talking about this. And social media has already moved on to the next thing. It's not okay. We need to keep talking about this. We need to keep talking about these women. We need to keep talking about what it's like for fucking Stockholm and to be manipulated and violated by rich men who feel completely invincible. This is not a rare, isolated incident. This is something women should talk about, mothers should talk about. We can't let it just fade. We got to keep bringing it up. Like I said, if you can handle it, trigger warning, watch the documentary. It's difficult as fuck, but it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about all that goes on besides sexual assault. It taught me about the psychology behind it and the manipulation behind it and the lifelong trauma behind it and all the families who are affected by it. So I think it's really, as painful it is to watch, I think it's incredibly informative and something that as women, maybe if we watched things like this, maybe we wouldn't be so quick to be like, oh, whatever, this is fine, whatever, he's still a great singer. Watch that fucking documentary, and you watch their pain, and you watch their family's pain, and you still say it's okay, and he's still a good musician. I fucking dare you. So anyway, sorry I went off. I just felt the need to do this. So yeah, not exactly my typical show. It's not exactly a typical subject either. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't. I have this week's news coming up tomorrow. And I'm gonna have my co from FHL joining me. That's 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. And I have some other great shows lined up. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Again, I apologize if this was emotional for anyone, but I just felt like it was so necessary to be discussed. So thank you again for watching. Much love.